All right, everyone, we are back on MorningLine. Thanks for joining us. We'll be joined here in just a couple of minutes by a guest from over at Vanderbilt. All right, it's Danielle McDonough. She is Vanderbilt Health Affiliated Network, and they're here. We're going to talk a little bit about a webinar they have coming on, but this is something that I've thought about, everything from college-age students, but younger beyond that. As she says, I'm reading from one of the releases with regard to this webinar coming up. During the pandemic, experts at Vanderbilt learned a lot about anxiety, COVID-19, and how it impacted students. We all know it did, not just from the point of view of, how they did their studies from home and having to get those computers up, but also the anxieties they may feel about going back. So she says, just because summer is almost here doesn't mean that the anxiety that students experienced will go away. That's true. As we gear up for another large transition out of school, we hope to give parents some information to help their children throughout the summer so that they can better plan and prepare for their time away from academics and get ready for the upcoming school year, which is exactly it. It's interesting. I was talking to my son who goes to UT, and next year will be his senior year at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. And he had a year unlike any, like we all did, basically taking a full course load from his apartment, very rarely venturing onto campus and doing it that way. And he social distanced, and he did well, and he's fully vaccinated now. But things are going to be a lot different. Next year, the campus is going to be back open and bustling, which is a great thing. And I think he just has the legitimate concerns about going back. All right, this is something we've all been told. Now, he's a college student, so I think he's a little bit better prepared to deal with this and understand how things go on. But what about the younger age kids? High schoolers, I think, too. As they go back, we'll have a better handle on it, and they won't have the anxiety. But, middle school, grade schoolers, as they go back, when they've been told, we can't go to school because there's a dangerous illness you could be exposed to, was what they said last year, and they're learning from home all this time. What can you do? How do you talk to them about going back? And do you talk to them about throwing all caution to the wind? If they've been vaccinated, do you talk to them about going back still with masks? All those kinds of questions. So let's get some of those answers this morning. As I said, we're joined now by Danielle McDonough. Are you with us, ma'am? There you are. How are you this morning?
Oh, I'm well. Thank you for having me today.
Oh, good. It's good to have you. Your microphone's up and running. You're with the Vanderbilt Health Affiliated Network, and you want to talk to us a little bit for a couple segments here on this webinar. I was trying to set the stage for it, but what exactly is this webinar? I guess it's for parents of school-age children. What's it focused on?
Absolutely. So we're really gearing our webinar tomorrow from noon to 1 for our patients and their families in regards to how COVID has impacted anxiety in regards to this school setting especially. This is going to be hosted by Catherine Shaw. She's a Vanderbilt psychiatric nurse practitioner. She's going to share with us what she has seen in her practice in regards to how anxiety has increased, how it's impacted our children and adolescents, some really simple coping strategies our parents can use with their kids, and really how to gear up during the summer for the upcoming school year.
Okay, and it's interesting. You talk about the anxieties. My thought is that the way things are going now, and I'm not someone who drops all the steps and the caution. I'm still careful, even though I'm fully vaccinated. Here at Channel 5, I wear the masks. But there is a certain degree of anxiety that has lifted off my shoulders, and that I've even seen with my child, my son, who's in college, actually, and younger kids. There's anxiety, I guess, there, but hasn't some of that lifted, or does it still have to be explained to kids?
So what we've really seen is that during lockdown, we initially saw anxiety around adjusting to the home learning environment. Saw anxiety there. We also saw kind of depression go up. As our kids have gone back to in-person learning, we've actually seen some of that depression go down, but we've seen the anxiety go up. And when we're thinking about school, we're not only thinking about academics, but the social piece of it. So a lot of these kids have not engaged socially with their peers for about a year. So now we're throwing them back in person with their peers. A lot of kids are saying, I don't know how to talk to people in person anymore. I don't get called on by the teacher. What if I say something silly? Everyone's looking at me. They got very used to being virtual and being able to turn the camera off if they felt uncomfortable. So just like we adjusted to being at home for quite a while, we're now adjusting to be back in person, and it will take time to get back in that groove. We've seen a lot of struggles with sleep routines. You know, when we're home virtually, we don't have to get up as early. So really thinking about getting back into our sleep routine to help with that anxiety and adjustment is something we're going to talk about tomorrow as well.
See, you know, I didn't even think of that. I was thinking it's going to be anxiety somehow related to COVID-19 one way or the other. But you're exactly right. I mean, it's even true in the workplace. I mean, for the last year, I've pretty much been the only reporter that comes into the studio here at News Channel 5. Our other reporters continue to work, but they're working from home. When we do finally open up, and we're not opened up here yet fully, it's going to be a transition for us as adults. And you're right. It's interesting, you know, and isn't it true, too? There are some kids and there are some employees here at Channel 5 who actually have prospered and liked being at home and they're more to themselves. And there's others I know who hate it and miss the newsroom setting or the classroom setting a lot. Different kids, different situations, right?
Absolutely. We have absolutely seen some kids who really have thrived being at home virtually and prefer to stay at home or in a hybrid model. So this certainly is not across the board, and every child certainly is different. And I like that you really mentioned, you know, as an adult, we are also feeling this. It is incredibly appropriate and important for us to be talking to our kids about this is hard for us too. Here's how I'm coping. Here's how I'm feeling. Really really normalizing this for our kids, that this is just not you. We are all dealing with this and we can deal with it together. And modeling some really great coping skills is going to be helpful as we gear up for the next school year.
And I'm just curious, for parents observing this, if the kids aren't talking about it, can you give me some ideas on how you can pick up whether the kid is having this anxiety? I mean, as you said, some of them may actually say, Mom, look, I've been on my own. I'm worried about being embarrassed in class. But are there other ways this manifests itself in anxiety in children? And I don't know if it's typical of all kids have anxieties of different types, but let's face it, we're coming out of an unprecedented time. What is it any different because of what we're coming out of?
I would really encourage parents to keep an eye on their kids. Like you said, some of our kids feel very comfortable communicating about their symptoms of anxiety. Other kids don't know what anxiety is. They don't know what they're feeling. So we really want to be observant. We're looking for kids who maybe are having frequent physical symptoms. You know, if you're at the pediatrician all the time because your stomach hurts or you're having headaches, but there's no medical calls, you know, we could be looking at anxiety. Kids that are having a lot of unwanted or intrusive thoughts, kids that have a lower self-esteem recently, saying things like, you know, I'm dumb, I don't want to go to school, I can't do it, it's too hard. So those are things we really want to look for. We also want to ask our kids a lot of questions, and we want to ask open-ended questions. We don't want to assume we know how they're feeling, so we really want to provide that safe place for them to be able to talk about it.
All right, listen, we'll take a break. When we come back, we've got another brief segment with you, Danielle, if that's cool. When we do come back, just maybe, you know, as you can give us here on the air some of the tips or maybe tricks, for instance, among other things, improving sleep. You know, and that, again, that's not something just that children are dealing with. There are adults transitioning back and how that works out. So let's take a break. We'll talk a little bit more about that with her and more right after this. Stay with us.